Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English Pods. I am Leonardo.
Whoa! Good morning, students. And I'm Elizabeth.
Today, we are diving into something a little different, like really different.
Different good or different,
Oh, definitely different good. Today, we are exploring an essential topic for anyone looking to excel in English. Ready to dive into the mysteries of true love? Well, you've come to the right place. Today, we'll be exploring, dissecting, really getting into how to find your true love in life.
Ooh, that sounds promising.
It is. But let's be honest, sometimes true love, it feels like this big, overwhelming kind of scary thing.
Right. For sure. A bit intimidating.
Exactly. So in this deep dive, we're going to try to break it down, make it a little more understandable, a little less, well, intimidating.
Love that.
Now, one thing that struck me about this source is, well, it doesn't sugarcoat things.
Oh, really? How so?
It's upfront about the fact that finding true love, it can be a journey, a challenging one sometimes.
You know, that's actually refreshing. So many times we're fed these fairy tale narratives.
Right. But this source is like, hey, let's get real.
It's about setting realistic expectations right from the start.
Totally.
Yeah.
So less fairy tales, more real talk. And speaking of real talk, how does this source define true love?
Well, it really pushes back against the whole happily ever after thing. Instead, it talks about true love as an ongoing process. It's about growth, both individually and as a couple.
So less about finding the one and more about becoming the right two.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination.
I like that a lot. Now, the source also talks a lot about self-love. I got to ask, is that just the usual self-help stuff, or is there something deeper going on there?
You know, I used to think it was all a bit cliche, too, honestly.
Same here.
But this source made me rethink it. It's not just about feeling good about yourself. It's about really understanding your own needs, your own values. It's about figuring out what you need in a partner. Not just what you want, but what you truly need.
So it's like you can't expect someone else to just come along and fix all your problems.
Right. Fill in all the gaps. If you haven't dealt with your own stuff, it's like, what are you building on?
Oh, shaky foundation for sure.
Exactly. Eventually, it's going to crumble.
You know what? I can totally relate to that. Looking back, I had a few relationships where, well, let's just say I wasn't exactly the most secure person.
It happens. We all have those experiences, right?
We do. We do. And, another point this source makes about self-love is it's not just something you have. It's something you work on actively. So how do we do that? Does the source give us any practical tips?
Oh, absolutely. It suggests things like journaling, spending time in nature. It even talks about things like learning to say no.
Learning to say no. Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, it's about setting boundaries, knowing what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with.
That makes sense. It's about being more in tune with yourself.
Exactly.
Figuring out what truly makes you happy. Now, here's something else that really caught my eye in this source. The idea that friendship, genuine friendship, is like this secret ingredient to true love.
I love that. It makes so much sense when you think about it.
It does. I mean, think about your closest friends. You share interests, you have inside jokes, you trust each other deeply.
And those things are all essential building blocks for romantic love too, right?
Totally. So does this mean, like, we should be friends with someone before we even think about dating them?
It's not necessarily about that. It's more about approaching dating with a similar mindset. Looking beyond that initial spark and asking yourself, hey, could I see myself being friends with this person?
That's interesting. So it's about shifting the focus from just the romantic aspect to something more, well, more like the foundation of a friendship.
Exactly. It's about looking for that deeper connection.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, another point this source makes is about, looking beyond the superficial stuff.
Oh, yeah. We all know those initial sparks can be deceiving.
Totally. I mean, who hasn't been attracted to someone based on their looks or their charm? At least at first.
It's human nature, right?
It is. But this source reminds us that those surface-level qualities don't always tell the whole story. What we should really be focusing on is character.
Absolutely. It's about who they are at their core.
Okay, but how do we do that? How do we look past the surface and actually get to know someone's character?
Well, the source gives some good advice on this. It suggests paying attention to how they treat other people, how they handle conflict, what their values and priorities are.
So less about fancy dinners and more about how they treat the waiter, right?
Right. It's about looking for substance, for depth.
I like that. Substance over surface. Now, the source also tells this story about a woman who was dating this guy who seemed, on the surface, perfect. successful, charming, showered her with gifts.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What happened?
Well, she started to notice how he treated his family, how he talked about his ex-partners. And it was like all of a sudden she saw a different side of him.
A side that wasn't so charming, huh?
Not so much. It's a good reminder that actions speak louder than words.
Oh, they definitely do. And that leads us to the source's next point, which is all about trusting your intuition.
Ooh, intuition. That gut feeling.
Exactly. It's about tuning into that inner voice that tells you if something feels right or wrong.
This is so important. Actually, I have a story about this. A while back, I was seeing this guy who, on paper, seemed perfect. But something just felt off. Like my intuition was screaming, run! But I ignored it. I thought I was overthinking things.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, let's just say my gut feeling was right. It turned out he was not at all who he presented himself to be.
Oh, I'm so sorry. But it happens to the best of us.
It does. But that experience taught me a valuable lesson about trusting my instincts.
And that's exactly what the source emphasizes. Don't ignore those gut feelings.
Okay, but how do you know if it's just nerves or a genuine red flag? Like, what's the difference?
That's a good question. The source talks about finding a balance between, following your heart and using your head. Don't ignore your feelings, but don't jump to conclusions either. It's about paying attention to patterns of behavior.
So if someone's actions don't match their words, that's a pretty big sign, right?
Right. And the source actually lists some specific red flags to watch out for. Dishonesty, disrespect, possessiveness, lack of empathy. It's about being aware of these things, not dismissing them just because you're smitten.
Super helpful. We'll definitely dive deeper into those red flags later on. But for now, there's one more point from the source that I really want to touch on. The importance of patience in the search for love.
Ah, yes. Patience. In a world of instant gratification, it can be tough.
It can. It's like we're always rushing into things.
Right. But when it comes to true love, it's not a race.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. It's about taking your time to really get to know someone, letting the relationship unfold naturally.
So no rushing to update your Facebook status or meet the parents after the first date?
Exactly. Resist those external pressures. Focus on building that genuine connection.
The source even suggests taking a break from dating apps and meeting people more organically.
I love that.
Me too. It's about being more intentional about how and where you meet people.
Quality over quantity.
Absolutely. And remembering that true love, it's worth the wait.
It definitely is. It's funny, we talk a lot about patience, like when you're looking for love. But the source also talks about patience within a relationship.
That's an interesting point. It's easy to get swept up in that honeymoon phase and we'll think everything's going to be perfect forever.
Right. But that's just not realistic. Every relationship has its ups and downs. Challenges are inevitable.
Totally. So how do we navigate those rough patches?
Well, the source is big on communication, like really open, honest communication right from the start.
So no more beating around the bush, just lay it all out there.
Pretty much. The source argues that, by being upfront about your needs, your expectations, even those things that might be a little uncomfortable to talk about.
It can actually make the relationship stronger in the long run.
Exactly. It helps build trust and understanding right from the beginning.
That makes a lot of sense. But good communication is not just about expressing your own needs, right? It's about listening to your partner too. Really listening.
Oh, absolutely. The source emphasizes this idea of active listening, which is, not just hearing the words, but really trying to understand your partner's perspective, responding with empathy.
So putting yourself in their shoes, trying to see things from their side.
Exactly. And, the source uses this great analogy. It compares communication in a relationship to a dance.
Oh, I like that. Tell me more.
It's like you take turns leading and following, finding a rhythm that works for both of you.
I love that. So it's not about having all the answers or trying to fix everything?
No, it's about working together as a team.
And speaking of working together, the source also talks about conflict resolution.
Which, let's be real, is something every couple has to deal with.
For sure.
Yeah.
So no more storming out or giving the silent treatment.
Definitely not. The source encourages us to, approach conflict with maturity and respect.
Easier said than done sometimes, though.
True. But it is possible. It's about, expressing your concerns calmly, listening to your partner's perspective, and then finding a compromise that works for both of you.
So basically turning those conflicts into opportunities for growth.
Exactly. Because when you learn to handle disagreements effectively, it can actually make your bond as a couple even stronger.
That's interesting. It's like seeing conflict not as a threat, but as a chance to understand each other better.
Precisely. Okay, so we've talked about communication, conflict resolution. What else does the source recommend for building a strong, lasting relationship?
Well, I'm curious about this. Once you've found someone special, how do you keep that spark alive? Especially when life gets busy and, routine sets in.
That's such a good question, and the source addresses that directly. It talks about the importance of continually nurturing the connection, making an effort, even amidst the chaos of daily life.
So less about grand gestures and more about those small, everyday things.
Exactly. The source talks about leaving a sweet note for your partner, making their favorite dinner, just little things that show you care.
Those little things, they can really add up, can't they?
They absolutely can. It's about creating this culture of appreciation and affection.
And remembering that, well, love is a journey, right? It's not always going to be fireworks and butterflies.
Exactly. There will be seasons of intense passion and seasons of quiet companionship.
The source even says that relationships, they kind of ebb and flow.
They do. And true love, it's about weathering those storms together.
Knowing that what you have is worth fighting for. What I really appreciate about this source is it doesn't shy away from the messiness of real love.
It's like embracing the imperfections.
Totally. It takes the pressure off trying to be perfect all the time.
Right. Because true love isn't about finding someone who completes you.
Ooh, I like that. Tell me more.
It's about, choosing to be on this journey together, a journey of growth and evolution, and acknowledging that both of you are going to change over time.
And that's okay.
More than okay. It's natural. So it's less about finding the perfect person and more about becoming the right partners for each other.
Yes. It's about cultivating those qualities that make a relationship thrive. Empathy, compassion, understanding, forgiveness.
An unwavering support.
This idea of choosing love, even when it's hard, it's really powerful.
It is, because it would be so easy to just give up when things get tough. But this source, it emphasizes that true love, it takes effort, it takes commitment.
It's a conscious choice every single day.
Exactly. And what really resonated with me from this source is it presents this idea that true love, it's transformative. It's not just about finding someone who makes you happy, but someone who inspires you to be a better person.
I love that. It's about finding a partner who challenges you to grow.
Yeah.
Who supports your dreams, your individuality.
Exactly. Someone you can learn from, laugh with, and navigate all of life's complexities with.
This has been such a rich conversation. We've covered so much, from self-love to communication to the whole journey of love.
It has been a deep dive, for sure.
It has. But before we wrap up, I'm curious to hear more about what the source has to say about recognizing red flags.
Ah, yes, red flags. That's a topic that deserves its own deep dive, don't you think?
Okay, so red flags. Those little warning signs that something might not be quite right.
Exactly. The ones we sometimes try to ignore, but really shouldn't.
The source really digs into this, right? Actually gives us some concrete things to watch out for.
It does. It doesn't shy away from the tough stuff at all.
So let's get into it. What are some of the biggest red flags we should be aware of?
Well, right off the bat, the source talks about dishonesty.
Makes sense. Honesty, that's the foundation of any relationship, right?
Absolutely. And if someone is lying, even about small things, it can be a sign of, bigger problems down the road.
So if you catch someone in a lie, even a little white lie, it's not something to just brush off.
Right. It's important to see how they react when you bring it up. Are they defensive, trying to justify it? Or do they take responsibility? Apologize.
That makes sense. Their reaction can tell you a lot about their character.
Exactly. So dishonesty, that's one to watch out for.
Okay, what else? What other red flags should we be on the lookout for?
Disrespect, another big one.
Disrespect. Yeah, that can show up in so many ways, can it?
It can. It could be constant criticism, putting you down, dismissing your feelings.
Not just in private either, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's how they treat you in front of other people.
That's a really good point. And the source really drives this home. It says, you deserve to be treated with respect, period.
Absolutely. No matter what.
And if someone is constantly disrespecting you, it might be a sign that, they don't value you or the relationship as much as they should.
Yeah. Ouch. Okay, so we've got dishonesty, we've got disrespect. What's next on the list?
Possessiveness. Now, it's natural to feel a little jealous every now and then, but if someone is trying to control you, isolate you from your friends and family.
Oh, that's a whole other level.
It is, and it's a big red flag. The source talks about how healthy relationships, they're built on trust, on freedom. You should feel comfortable being your own person.
So it's not about them owning you. It's about them loving you for who you are.
Exactly.
Okay, possessiveness. Got it. Are there any other red flags we should be aware of?
There is one more the source talks about, a lack of empathy.
Empathy. Being able to understand and share your partner's feelings. That's so important, isn't it?
It really is. And if someone is constantly dismissing your emotions, invalidating your experiences, that's a problem.
Because emotional connection, that's such a huge part of a healthy relationship.
Right. And if you don't feel seen or heard by your partner, it can be incredibly lonely.
You know what? This whole conversation about red flags has been so helpful. I feel like I have a much clearer picture of, well, what to look for and what to avoid.
And remember, these red flags, they're not about making you paranoid or distrustful.
No, not at all.
It's more about giving you tools, right? Helping you navigate dating with more awareness.
And intention.
Exactly. So trust your gut. And don't be afraid to walk away from something that doesn't feel right, even if it means, starting over.
Okay, that's really empowering. Yeah, this whole deep dive, it's been such a journey. We've learned so much about true love. It's not a fairy tale. It's not always easy. But it's about so much more than just finding the one.
It is. It's about self-discovery. It's about growth. It's about choosing love, even when it's hard.
And never settling for anything less than you deserve.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. To all of you out there, keep your hearts open, keep learning, and never give up on the pursuit of true love.
Because it's out there, and it's worth it.
Until next time, keep diving deep.